Did you guys see the new trailer for this indie game just dropped today? It's set in Florida. Has alligators and like Bonnie and Clyde main characters.
Oh, I
heard about it. Heard a little something.
I don't know about a trailer, but I actually bought an indie game recently called Skater Gator. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, it's a little game called Grand Theft Auto 6. It's by an indie studio.
Oh,
yeah.
Is it like adjacent to Skater Gator? Similar?
Yeah, very similar. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
This gets into the Shantae discussion, right? Rockstar, they don't have a publisher; they publish their own games.
Exactly.
This isn't even remotely close to Shantae. Comparing Grand Theft Auto to Shantae, look at my guy here. He takes one episode off. He decides to come back swinging.
Well, we decided to title the last episode that Shantae's an indie game, so he's justified, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a kick to the jimmies, but you know what? After about 3 weeks of seething, at some point, my fiance was like, "You got to stop talking about this, man. Like, I can't listen to another night of you ranting about this Shantae thing." I was like, "Fine, I'll drop it. We'll move on." And so here I am. This is my return. I'm coming out of retirement.
Well, this is IndieQuest.
Glad you're back, loser.
Welcome in, everybody. I'm one of your co-hosts here, Josh. The voice you just heard was Steve. How's it going?
Hey, it's going pretty good.
We're here with the captain himself, Seth, a.k.a. Captain Drachma, since we go back and forth in your name all the time. So,
yeah,
how's it going?
I'm whatever you guys want to call me out there.
That guy over there.
It's going good. That guy. Yep.
So I figured just to start off the show, we'll just talk a little bit. First off, I want to shout out that we got our Spotify Wrapped in, and we got quite a decent amount of consistent listeners. So I just wanted to say, hey, if you're listening to this all the time, we appreciate it. That's why we're here. Well, we're here to have fun and talk about indie games, but it's really cool to see that people are enjoying our conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just awesome to know that everyone enjoys listening to us talk about things that we love and we would want to do anyway. That's my favorite thing, right? It's just, It's a hobby for all of us to do something like this. And when you find out that people are enjoying your hobby with you, that's pretty fun.
Yeah. Very, it would not be a lie to say that last year was the most successful year, or this last year was the most, successful year for IndieQuest. So, hey, thanks for listening, and we hope that we continue to provide you some cool recommendations or to validate opinions that you already have, because everyone likes to hear oh, hell yeah, I already liked Archvale, but I'm glad that these three guys liked it too.
Exactly.
Yeah, just you just mowing the lawn hell yeah, Archvale. That's a dope game. Yeah.
That's the money game right there. Let's go.
Also, I did have on the notes last time, Potomax made this really cool video where he compiled the first 75 songs from IQOST into one video that you can listen to on his YouTube channel. That'll be in the description. It was in the description last time, but I literally read the doc out of order, so I just completely forgot to mention it. So here's us mentioning it, and that was pretty cool. That was a nice little surprise. So
yeah, something nice to listen to while you're working. A good mix of tunes, because as we've gone through, folks that have been with us a while, occasionally the OST episodes have a theme, occasionally they don't. It's like sometimes it's a random one, sometimes you get a holiday episode, Halloween, Christmas. Sometimes we have kind of a seasonal theme here and there. So as you go through the playlist, it's kind of like you're vibing through time. All right,
really,
and it's real good. And thanks, Potomax. You the best. And for folks that are like, well, damn, when's the next OST episode? We got some stuff coming up in the nearish future. All right, we'll hit you with one probably in early 2024.
Yeah, we have Game of the Year. We're already kind of noodling on that. So after we get through that, we'll get you with some nice chill tracks to listen to in the new year.
Speaking
Game of the Year season, best season.
Speaking of GOTY season, things that you aren't going to talk about here? You guys want to talk about anything you've been working on your GOTY list to try to cap off here in December?
It's tricky because it's like a balancing act. I have GOTY stuff that I'm trying to cram in, here, and then GOTY stuff that I'm trying to cram in for Polykill / my personal list. So not everything I've been playing is applicable here, unless I don't know. Under Drachma's rules, I should ask. Super Mario Bros. Wonder indie game? Yes, no.
I mean, back in 1985.
But in terms of indie stuff, I would say the one big one that I have not played, that I think I have time to play, is Chants of Sennaar.
Oh,
That's one that I'm really looking to get to. I do want to play Space of the Unbound, but I feel like it's a little too long of a game for me to get to by the end of the year, and thankfully the two of you have already played it, so at least we'll have like some informed opinion. I feel good when two of the three of us have played something and it's not just like one person on an island trying to defend something on faith, right? So I'd say that's the big one for me. I will, if I have time, I'll squeeze in that Smooshy Come Home, because you sold me on that one too. That seemed pretty good.
It's good.
Yeah, that's in a Humble Bundle right now too, I think. Like,
oh, really?
That and like 7 other games. So if you haven't purchased it yet, there's probably a decent deal for you there.
Yeah.
I'm playing Chants of Sennaar too. I played through that, and then I actually just played and wrapped up Viewfinder, which I know Steve's played already. So that's the two that I wanted to get off for sure. And there's a few more, but that's basically all I'm playing indie-wise right now.
Oh, I did also play Planet Alana, which Seth brought. So we're doing a pretty decent job, I think, of like kind of rounding out stuff we missed and then covering some holes that other people played, so that we all can have multiple opinions. But what about you, Jock? What are you playing?
I just finished up Dordogne.
Oh yeah. It's a quick one, right?
Yeah, it was about 4 hours ish, I think. So, and you probably could get it done a little bit quicker, depending on how much you want to collect of everything that you can walk around and find. But
longer than I thought. I thought that was more like a Venba, like a 1 to 2 hour kind of deal.
There's like 6 or 7 chapters. Like it's a decent little chunk of time you're going to end up spending, especially if you want to get some of the achievements, at least the stuff that I got on Steam, right? But it's really fun. I'm not going to bring it here. It's just there's not enough time left in the year to cover every piece or every game that came out in 2023, of course, on IndieQuest. But it's a really fun game. Best part about that game is the art style. It's like watercolor, amazing, beautiful. There's parts where you're kayaking down the Dordogne, the river in France, and it is just the most gorgeous screenshots that you're ever gonna see. So, indie wise, I played that game, finished it last week, and then AAA wise, which I don't have Polykill to get to talk about this kind of stuff, so I'm going to talk about it right now. I've been playing Octopath Traveler 2. And that is
you liking it?
Nice. How is that compared to the first one?
Honestly, I've played it for about 7 or 8 hours so far, so I've only gotten 3 travelers and started, because that's kind of how it works, right? You pick one traveler to start with, and you kind of start moving through the map and collect more travelers as you go, and find out, get more stories as you're going. I would say it's more streamlined than the first one. It actually gives you an option. Like, if you only care about your original character's story, you can skip the first chapter of the next character you get, which is kind of, I obviously didn't do that because I want to, that's part of the game, right? I want to know the stories, but it is interesting that you could just collect characters and they start on your team at level 1. And you gain a couple levels by going through the first chapter, but you can grind in like 5 or 10 minutes and get those levels wherever you're at with your character that you have, you know what I mean? But so it's a little bit streamlined in that way. It's very, very pretty. I would say it's got a slight bit more polish than the original Octopath Traveler. From what I've read and what I've experienced so far, it's just basically the original, but better in almost every way. And that's kind of how I'm feeling so far. So I'm excited to keep going through it. I hope maybe to be able to finish it before the end of the year, depending on what else I'm grinded on indie-wise. But very fun.
Nice, yeah. Folks have been saying a lot of good stuff about that one, and I was curious because I thought the first one was really good, but I did bounce off of it like halfway through. I got through like chapter 2 of most characters, and then the template of it all eventually was like I kind of felt like I had gotten my fill. But people have said that 2 is like a real step forward, so I'm glad to hear that you're really liking it.
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit on Drunk Friend. Here's a plug. I was on the last Drunk Friend. But for me, this kind of JRPG actually works because I kind of shiny thing, go here or do something different. It's almost open world a little bit in that way. You can pivot and do something else for a while. You don't have to just stick to the same story for 40 hours. You're kind of balancing a whole bunch of different stories. It's almost like 8 games in one. So for me, that works. I like that.
I know it was kind of a notable exclusion from the Game Awards Best RPG category. Some stuff like Final Fantasy 16, which is not an RPG, is in there. And so would have been nice to see that in there. But yeah, I'm glad you're giving it some love.
Yeah,
for sure.
I am trying to play some more like 2023 games, but there's a game I'm going to bring eventually, but I got stuck on a roguelike. It ended up being I played like 11 hours of this game in like 5 days. So, that happens. So
you're not spoiling it yet then, huh, Josh?
I mean, if you're in the Discord, you probably would like seen it, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can't, it's hard to keep secrets from the two of you. Let me ask this then. Of the two of you, who brought a 2023 game?
I didn't.
I did.
You did?
Yep.
I did too.
Yes.
Drachma and I both come into 2023 games. Josh, so you did not?
No, I did not. So
well, maybe that means you should go first. Seems like an arbitrary way to force your hand.
Perfect.
Okay.
Buckle up.
All right. I'm pulling this up because I want to have stuff in front of me about it. I should have already been prepared, but I wasn't. Let's see. It's a 28. Okay, I want to kind of see if you guys can guess what game I'm bringing. It's a 2018 game. It's a well-reviewed game. Very nice graphics. Very nice music.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're giving me all kinds of stuff to go on here,
Yeah.
Chad.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Throw a genre at me.
Okay, it's a 2D game.
So it's a roguelike. You already threw that at
No,
you.
it's not a roguelike. No.
I thought you said it was a rogue. Oh, you've been playing another roguelike.
It's
Now
for a
you're
different day. Yeah.
Mr. Assumptions. You know what assuming does.
I want to
right?
actually roll credits on that roguelike a couple times before I bring it. That type of thing. But anyway, this is a different game.
2018 game. Beautiful. Sounds good.
2D.
So it's a 2D platformer?
Yes.
All right, hang on. Any guesses there, Drachma?
I am so bad at guessing.
You guys might be shocked I'm bringing.
Oh,
I'll see.
I'm pulling up my 2018 Game of the Year list.
I have a guess. I have a guess, and it's probably wrong. Is it time, Josh, that you actually brought Celeste?
It's time, guys. I'm bringing Celeste to the quest log. Let's do this.
Wow. See, that is still to this day. I cannot believe it's still not in the quest log. So I was like, wait, Celeste? Oh, yeah, it still is. We were just waiting for Josh to bring it.
Yeah, kind of.
My guess was going to be Yoku's Island Express, which would have been way off.
I mean, that game, yeah, that's a fun game too. But we could talk about that one a different day. Celeste. Yes, it's pretty well known that I really love this game. Just to say it straight up, it's a great game. It's 2D platformer, splatformer, screen based. People know what Celeste is. The reason I wanted to bring this on, what actually spurred me, I was playing the mod pack some more, Strawberry Jam. I think that came out this year, and I was just loving it. I'm like, this is so fun. Celeste is such a good game, and you know what? I just want to talk about Celeste. So here we are. So
it's interesting you mentioned the Strawberry mod. Whatever all that's called, because when Steam recently prompted me to, hey, answer or pick out of all these Steam game categories, pick the best of for all this stuff. And one of the categories is of an older game, which of these, like, the developers keep up on stuff, right? And I'm sure Celeste would probably be a great choice for that. Constantly releasing new content and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that they're mostly like heads down working on their new one, Earthblade, right now. But I know that they had, I think they released like the sea sides later on. But I'll describe this game a little bit. So it's a 2D platformer, semi 16-bit art style. You have a jump and a dash and a grabbing mechanic, and then obviously they add on to that mechanic as you're going through it. It's mostly just, here's a level, get to the end of this level, and occasionally there's strawberries or other secrets that you can find in the levels. And I would describe the art style to be, I guess, more like colorful. Like I don't know how to describe this thing. Like, you guys probably seen Celeste before, but lots of blues, lots of dark backgrounds with really nice parallax scrolling, and lots of little effects like wind rushing through the hair of the main character and things like that. That just looks really good. Like, take a pixel art game and just add a bunch of really nice details to it. So, music, which is just beautiful. I can't think of the name of the artist. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Lena Raine?
Yeah, Lena Raine. Yep. She does such a good job, or they do such a good job with this game. And it's just very, very, like, it's one of those vibe games. Like, I feel like this is, for Steve, his Super Meat Boy is my Celeste, where I can go back, play a level of Celeste, and get, even if like 10 minutes, I'm going to have a good time. And I've actually gotten to the point where I can pretty much get through mostly the entire game without dying too much. You know, I haven't really tested my ability. I haven't speed ran the game or anything, but most of the time the game is about getting to the end of the next area, and it's all about conquering this mountain. You play the main character's named Madeline. You're trying to get up the mountain of Celeste Mountain. And, it's all about overcoming. It has a underlying theme throughout the whole thing. There's this dark side of Madeline, and you're not sure what they're all about. Like, what is this dark thing? And it's all about like self-acceptance and about reassurance that anything you put your mind to, you can get, overcome. Mm-hmm. And the mountain's kind of a symbol of that throughout the game.
Yeah. I mean, the mental health stuff that is incorporated into Celeste. I mean, perhaps there were games before, platformers, that did that, but nothing like Celeste that I can remember had come out before Celeste, where it's like this hard splatformer. You're going to die a lot, but also has this emotional finding yourself story. It's wild. I mean, honestly.
It is like, you say that it's your Super Meat Boy. In terms of play, they're very similar, but in terms of like tone and vibe, they could not be farther.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, definitely.
You could not find. It's like they played Super Meat Boy, and they're like, "What if we just did the exact opposite of this in every way?" Mm-hmm. But it's, I mean, this game it's kind of like it could be like a Mount Rushmore kind of indie game, right?
Right.
Like, it is very, very well loved, and I think part of that is because the stories. Like this other half of Madeline that they're dealing with is intentionally left a little bit vague, mm-hmm. which is like useful for you as the player to map on whatever you connect with, right? Like, you can say this is an exploration of depression. It's the queer trans experience. It is anxiety. It is any number of things. So like its player base is very broad, but they all sort of connect to the theme in a similar way, which is cool.
Yeah, to me, when I played it, and I didn't really know much backstory about the creator of the game. Of course, they've come out as trans since the game has come out, and talked about their experience and how the game helped them get through the experience, which is really nice to know that after the fact. When I played the game, it kind of like was more of an echo of me. You kind of feel yourself in the character and you can relate really well to it. I suffer from depression and anxiety like I have my entire life. So having that, to have a touchstone while playing this game, I can relate to the character in this, like, it's kind of weird because it's like a pixelated game, and like there's little dialogue boxes that pop up, and you do have some conversations you have with that one dude that she meets on the mountain and stuff like that. But it's more kind of like ambiguous, like you said. So it's really easy to put yourself in their shoes during the gameplay, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Easy. As people that record our voices and put them onto the internet, I think a lot of people that make stuff feel similarly. Mm-hmm. It's easy to listen back to what you've made and like kind of only hear the mistakes you made or the things that you wish you had said differently, where you're like, damn, I really didn't get that point across very well. And so that was probably the most that I could resonate with the story of Celeste, is like hearing the version of yourself that is like, you didn't really produce the way I expected you to. So it's just yet another angle.
Yeah. And I think the whole message throughout the game is, like it starts out like it literally just says the splash screen says you can do it. You know, that's the whole point of it.
Yep.
It's like, it doesn't matter how many times you fail, you're going to overcome that obstacle, which that's great. And I love the message of the game. And I think anybody should experience it. And I think that, to describe the mechanics of the game a little bit, you know, it's a tough game. It's really tough. It's really hard and very challenging at times, especially like once you get to like the last stage where you have that final ascent up the mountain. Spoilers, I guess. But there are a lot of really good accessibility options in the game to ease your tension, you know, like add, like you can just triple jump if you want, or you can dash all the way across the map without a refresh and things like that to, you know, take that friction away and you can still enjoy the game. You know, I know some people will be like, I don't know if I want to play this really hard platforming game, you know, like, it's not really my thing, but I think this game has enough of that in it to, make you feel like, you know, what was I trying to say? Has enough of the accessibility stuff in it to where you can actually get through it no matter your skill set or even your preference in video games.
Right. The best thing about Celeste is the die and restart immediately. Like,
Yep.
It's Super Meat Boy does the same thing, but it is instantaneous. You almost every single room that you're going through in Celeste is a single screen, especially early on. So you can kind of map out where you want to go as you're like before you even make your first jump, right? And that's the best thing. And every single time you get a little bit further, and when you make a mistake, it's always on you, right? Oh, I did that wrong. It's never because the game is unfair. It might be too hard, but it's always like, no, I can do that better. And that's, you know, the gameplay matches so well with the story. Like, just improve a little bit every single time you go out and you start playing. It's a great game to pick up and play for 10 minutes a day, like Josh was saying. Even from the get-go, you don't have to blast through it in 6 hours and beat it. Or I don't know exactly how long it takes. I can't remember. But you can pick it up and play a little bit every day and experience a couple more screens. Like that's the kind of the beauty of Celeste, at least in my eyes.
Right. And I think the presentation does a lot for it too. Like, this game is like, it's stunning. It's beautiful. It's cozy at times. It can be scary at times. I think that they do a very good job at when you get to a new area. This feels like such a unique area that you haven't been to before. And it has the vibe to it, and it has the music kicks in. It's either just like, oh, it's so calm and serene, or, oh, I'm going to, like, whenever you're like I said, climbing the mountain, the music gets like very like intense and like you feel determined because the music and the atmosphere is pushing you along as well as the story. I think just all together the game as a package, it's incredible. Like, this game is like really well loved. I'm probably not saying anything new. I'm not saying anything new. Everybody knows this game is awesome. 10 out of 10 on IGN, you know, stuff like that. Everybody knows this game's amazing. And honestly, I'm bringing it to the quest log just because I didn't think we'll ever really sit down and do a full episode on Celeste. I don't know. Maybe we will one day if we get lucky and get an interview with like the creators or something. But I just wanted to talk about it because, yeah, it's pretty much, to me, it's kind of a perfect video game. I think I've said that before a few times on this show, but like, honestly, like 10 out of 10. Come on. Like, it's perfect. It's Celeste. Come on.
Steve will disagree with you, but Josh, I almost perfectly agree with you. It might not be a 10 out of 10, but it's definitely a 9.5 for me. I love this game. I knew going in, I had played Celeste quite a while after it originally released. I think I played maybe 2 or 3 years after, and knew how good of a game it was. I had heard people talk about it. Probably you, Josh. It was early on in my Discord tenure, I suppose. But yeah, incredible. I mean, it absolutely does exactly what you think it's going to do, and does it with flying colors. It's a great game.
It's a very customizable game too, and not just. Right. I mean, Josh mentioned the accessibility options to lower the difficulty, but there's also strawberries to seek out and find, other secrets that I won't get into, and then there's B-sides and C-sides, which are like much harder versions of levels and much more difficult challenges than anything you come across in the main game. So depending on how much you want to poke around and how much, how into this type of like hyper difficult 2D platformer you are, You can sort of like within the game, within the mechanics and within the systems that they have, crank that difficulty up and down, which is why I think so many people are able to get through it. I mean, by contrast, this is not everything, but if we look at like the percentage of people that have the Super Meat Boy Platinum Trophy and did everything, it's like 0.1%. Yeah. And you look at the percentage of people that have the Celeste Platinum Trophy and it's like 20%. It's ridiculously high because people can tune the game to exactly what works for them, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I haven't actually beat all the Seasides. They're tough. They're really hard.
They are tough.
They're like punishing. Like they're hard. Like Strawberry Jam is supposed to be that hard, and I'm actually kind of like working my way through. I played one of the harder stages and actually got through one of them. I'm like, this one still isn't as hard as the Seasides. The Seasides are like they're a little mean, just to be honest. But I mean that's what the people who made the game, they know that there is that person out there that's going to be like beat their head against the wall to get through that level. So
yeah, it's the rare game where there's a very compelling story that connects with a lot of people and a very compelling game. And you only need to really connect with one of those two to have a good time. And most people are going to connect with one of the two. Mm-hmm. So it works. Just works. Works well. Just works.
And Steve, I know it's not your favorite game ever. And I think that whenever you're not like, oh my God, this game rules, it's so awesome, everybody's like, man, Steve hates that game. And I know you don't hate this game. Like
no, I'm like, literally, I'm like, Celeste for me personally is like a solid 8 out of 10. I think it's like very good.
Half decent.
But yeah, it's half decent. But when you're talking, there's certain indie games that like have such momentum behind them. It's the same with like Undertale. If you think Undertale is an 8 out of 10, which I don't, I think it's a 10. But if you think it's an 8 out of 10, it's like you are up against the horde, man. You are getting taken down. So yeah,
it's like the Mount Rushmore. You got Undertale, you got Celeste, you got Shovel Knight. It's up there.
Yep.
So
it certainly is. Yeah, and again, it's good. It's very good. It's great. In fact, it's just it didn't personally. It's hard because when you talk to people talk about it, and it always is like you do, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It's I think a pretty common experience where it's like it becomes one of their favorite games of all time. And so I think if you tell someone it did not become one of my favorite games of all time, they think you're saying it's trash. It's dirt.
Yeah.
What's below the side quest? What's the third one called that we've never talked about?
It's like Seth saying, "Oh, Super Meat Boy, it's pretty good. I enjoyed it." And we're like, "Man, that game is nostalgic. We loved it." So
yeah, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, you moron?
Yeah, I have this game, Josh, that you brought today, Celeste, to directly compare to Super Meat Boy because they do, at least in the gameplay, they do a lot of things very similarly. And
you're the tiebreaker. What wins?
I personally like Celeste more. Super
crap opinion.
But I think it has a lot to do with, where I was maybe in life at the time. And I personally like the presentation of Celeste more. But that's because Super Meat Boy was like basically a Flash game.
Right.
Yeah. It's way different. So this is the level of polish on Celeste it's hardly comparable to Super Meat Boy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, for sure. There's a reason that a bunch of modern indie games, modern meaning like in the 2020s, look like Celeste.
Yes.
It templatized a certain like high fidelity, low fidelity look.
Yeah, it's let's just say like for people who have played Celeste and they're like, okay, we're going to keep talking about this game. You might have skipped this already. You're like, I know about Celeste. Let's talk about something else. But if you're a Celeste fan like I am and you're looking for like that palette, like all those sprites used in new ways and very unique new mechanics in Celeste, and kind of want like a semi sequel to Celeste, I would say, I would check out Strawberry Jam. Like I'll probably shout this again over when we talk about Game of the Year. Like, I'll probably bring it up again because like it's so fun. Like they just think of so many creative things, the mod community, and it's like this group of like 50 plus modders made this really awesome mod. So if you're a fan of Celeste, yeah, definitely check that out for sure. And I guess I should put this on the quest log. I mean, it's obviously a side quest game, so
yeah.
How many times got to make that
is
joke?
What I would say.
Mid.
Yeah. All right, so that's a main quest, Celeste. Like, I don't know. We could do a whole episode, go dive deep into the themes if we really wanted to, but I think it's about time I brought it to the quest log, and there we go.
I respect it, man. Good on you, because it's sometimes it's easy to take, these handful of games that we loved well before we ever started the podcast and kind of like you wait for the perfect moment or the perfect way to unveil them. You want like this grand ceremony, and sometimes I get a whole episode about Super Meat Boy and it's easy to do it, but sometimes it's like, man, you just got to put it on there so that list has another great game on it.
Yeah, like if you haven't played the game, obviously go play it. Like this is just, to me, one of my favorite indie games. Honestly, if I really want them to take their time on Earthblade, like their sequel or their next game that they're working on, but as soon as that's announced and it's out, that like I'm dropping everything and playing that game. Like I might even call into work type of game, since I like that game, Celeste, so much. So
yeah. That's a must play for sure. I think they've certainly earned my attention, right? Like what is it? Extremely okay? Is that the?
It was Extremely Okay Games. I think that's what they are called now. I think it was called Maddie Makes Games or something before or something like that. Okay. So yeah, now it's Extremely Okay Games. I think they just do EX OK Games now. So yeah. Just to cut in here, this is future Josh editing the show. And one thing I wanted to mention to you guys before I render out this episode and get it out to you guys is I completely forgot the main reason I was playing this game in the first place. The game being Celeste. It's the Cartridge Club Game of the Month for December in 2023. So go check out Cartridge Club, go follow them, and play along if you haven't tried out Celeste and this game sounded interesting to you. All right, now back to the actual show. Check it out.
Sweet.
So who wants to go next?
I can go because mine's pretty. Mine's like the appetizer before what I'm sure is the big double Seth burger that's coming at the end. All right,
and I'm
big meaty boy.
You're the fried. You're like the little appetizer, fried pickles and like mozzarella sticks. And
I love some fried pickles. Though.
Yeah, me too. We just had some last weekend, and
I could entree some fried pickles, Josh. That's
pickles
like
nasty.
Oh
nasty.
God, I'm trying to think of what the anti-Steve meal would be like pickles and milk.
Yeah. maybe raw onions. Honestly, if you wanted to make my ideal anti-meal, it would be a big glass of milk, some pickles, a bowl of split pea soup, some thick ham, like steaks, and a side of raw onions. Ugh.
Honestly.
I know we're talking about food now, but what's your guys' opinion on canned spinach? Because I hate canned spinach. I really can't stand
I'm
it.
for basically all spinach, but canned spinach is the worst kind of
it's
spinach.
Stinky. Like, I don't know. I can't get over the smell, Yeah.
Sometimes you got to get through that good stank to get the tasty flavor.
I'm not a huge spinach fan, but I would rather do like leafy spinach in some salad. I'd prefer not to Popeye it, So
take a spinach salad over an iceberg salad 100 times out of 100.
Much more healthy for you.
Yeah, look at me. I'm
you were the picture of it.
Body by spinach right here.
Pinnacle.
But if anybody flicks Steve, he will break a bone because he's never had milk in his life. So.
Speaking of healthy things, indie games make you feel good, so they're healthy, right? So,
there you go. Wow. He very roughly wrangled us back.
I tried.
All right, I'll present a video game here for you.
Okay.
I bet you guys can guess. At this point, there's no mystery left in my life. Okay, but I bet you can guess. If you were going to guess what I'm going to bring, what do you think it's going to be?
Birth.
Oh yeah, Birth. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Birth. All right, folks.
Only reason is because as Polykill was going last episode, I'm like, Steve didn't mention Birth. Oh, he's bringing Birth to IndieQuest. He shoved that one in his pocket.
Spoils it. I don't bring it to Polykill and it spoils it. Honestly, half the reason I didn't bring Polykill last episode is because I was so sick and coughing so much that I was like, I need to add more games to this list. It's hard enough to get through one episode.
All right.
Yes, I'm talking about Birth, which is a video game. It is a point-and-click puzzle game. It's developed by Madison Carr, which I apologize, Madison, if I'm mispronouncing the last name, but it's Karrh. So, Madison Carr. It is available on Steam, and I can't recall. It might be available on Switch too. Not 100% sure. But as far as I know, it's mostly a PC Steam game. And it was released February 17th, 2023. That's right.
Nice.
The year of our games, 2023. So this is a short game, and I think as a result, it'll be a pretty short overview. I'm not gonna. All right, I ain't got Celeste time to be talking about. Okay, we're gonna get in. I'm gonna let you know the deets. So as I said, it's a point and click adventure, but it's more of a puzzle game. I would liken it more to maybe Professor Layton. You're not like, when you think point and click adventure, you think you're clicking around, finding items, figuring out how to combine them, use them, talk to a bunch of characters. It's not that so much. There's some of that, but it's more you're walking around, you're clicking around to different places, and then in the environment, you're poking around, clicking on things to find little mini puzzles. Everything is very self-contained. It's kind of like, almost like everything's like a single screen puzzle. So the setup for the game, kind of the narrative structure is that you're playing as a character and you want to build yourself a partner. And so you are seeking all the component pieces to construct a partner for yourself. And that is their spine, their pelvis, their femur, their kidneys, their heart, their organ, all that stuff. You're finding the organs and the bones necessary to create kind of a Franken friend or a Franken lover, whichever you want to interpret it as. And you do that by, you walk around this very relaxing, kind of like downtown Main Street, sort of has like a city energy, but kind of like also a little bit of a rural energy at the same time. Yeah,
small town vibes.
Small town Main Street, right? Yes, so it's like you're walking left and right, and it's like there's the post office, there's the barber, there's the
salon,
there's the museum, I guess. Yeah. There's a museum you go into, the cafe. So each of these different buildings you go into, and then there's usually a character or two in there that you can interact with. And then you can just click around anywhere in the environment. Like your character doesn't have to walk up to it or anything. It's like you can click on the clock on the wall. You can click on the coats on the coat rack. You can click on the bar. You can click on the bottles behind the bar. All that stuff. And sometimes you'll just get satisfying little sounds, and sometimes you'll get yourself a little bit of a puzzle. And the puzzles really are never overly difficult. Like, I would say, first off, the game in general is not very difficult or very long. You can get through it pretty quick. But all the puzzles, to me, feel like they're not designed to stump you. You know, you think of a puzzle game, like a traditional indie puzzler, like the Witness or something like that. And the idea in that game is like, you got to sit there and you got to like learn the rules and like really understand it and like apply them in creative ways to figure out solutions, which is great. But Birth is more of a low friction experience. It wants you to kind of very quickly identify what you need to do and then kind of go through the steps to do it, or it wants you to sort of stumble into the solution by clicking around and doing a little bit of exploration and learning of what to do. But I think most people, even people that don't play a lot of puzzle games, are not going to get stuck on many of these puzzles. There's probably, I don't know, maybe 50, 60, somewhere in there-ish. Maybe more in the entire game. And I don't think any of them I spent more than 5 minutes on at most.
I would say that from what I saw, I watched Steve stream this on Twitch, and 75% of the puzzles are Florence-esque, where it's like super basic. It's like you put this thing with this thing. It's like two pieces of a puzzle, and you do that 8 times and you've solved it, and here's your bone or whatever. But then there are a quarter of the puzzles where it makes you think a little bit more. I remember you were doing, it was almost like a triangular dominoes thing.
Oh yeah,
I remember with all the dots, like where you have to match up the dots on each, and it took a little bit more time, but still not incredibly difficult or anything.
Yeah, no. And you could still, even in that case, you can trial and error it and figure it out, as I did, right? You just sort of like, all right, let's try a configuration. That's slightly off. Let's swap these two around. Okay, let's see. But, and I'm always hesitant to call puzzles easy in a game because I feel like when people are talking about puzzle games, if you say the puzzle's easy, they feel like it's a boring game or like it fails as a puzzle game. But I don't think this game does fail as a puzzle game. I just think it isn't trying to tax you. It's like, it doesn't want to be Baba as you. It wants to be Birth. And so part of what makes the puzzles so like effective is that so much of this game trades in like the sensory experience of playing it, like the audio and the visuals. So first off, the sound design is like very satisfying. If you're an ASMR person, you're going to quite enjoy your time with Birth because everything you do has satisfying little like clicks and knocks, and you can run your mouse along like curtains and it'll do a little rustle. You can run them along bottles and it'll go clink, 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 little satisfying little glass tapping sounds. Everything has like really, really satisfying, pleasing little Foley and sound effects to go with it. And then the game, overall has this art style that is, it's like a halfway point between Adventure Time and like The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
If you
Seriously.
It's like the creator of Yeah, you're right.
that.
Adventure Time creator like hit up Tim Burton's like, hey, what's up, bro? Like, let's make something together, right?
Yeah.
For real. So everything is like it's all like it's skeletons, it's like inside out creatures. You know, you think Tim Burton, Coraline, Night Before Christmas, that type of stuff. It's all like that vibe, but it is all very like charming. It is very cozy. It is.
Yeah, it's so strange how it makes you feel. Like never in your life, unless you've got some, and it's okay, you know, if you're that type of person, you know, we can still be friends. But if you look at a corpse, you should probably think like, "Ugh, that makes me a little queasy. That's kind of weird." But Birth is like, "Oh, look at that corpse. It's kind of cute." It's so strange. It's weird.
It is, and some of the puzzles will do things that would be in a horror game. Like there are puzzles where it shows like a severed hand, and you click the severed hand 5 times, and like the skin peels away more and more, and there's like a key inside the meat of the hand, which sounds like I'm describing The Evil Within or Resident Evil 8.
You know, a saw or something.
it is very relaxing. It is very like, again, charming is the word I go back to. And in the backdrop, as you're doing it the whole time, there's this like very sweet, gentle synth soundtrack. It's like little piano melodies and kind of like upbeat little synth lines. It's often it fades into the background, but if you like stop and focus on it for a second, you're like, this is actually like pretty good. Like this could be like a solid intermission track on like a Panic at the Disco album or something. All right. Very satisfying. This game is, it's bringing out my emo.
It's a cute emo girl that collects skulls, right? A video game.
Honestly, right? It has like 15-year-old emo girl drawing on her folder in history class energy in the best possible way.
That is so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the best possible way. So the loop of the game then is, you know, you'll just go through kind of place to place. Basically, it amounts to each one location that you go into will have one piece of this partner that you're trying to build. So you'll go into the museum, you'll do 3, 4, 5 puzzles, and ultimately you'll find, usually those puzzles will give you like one component piece, and when you combine them together, it opens up and gives you that organ. So it's just a bunch of little satisfying like mini challenges that lead to like a little mini reward, and it clips along at a pretty good pace. The whole thing is very cohesive, and it's surprisingly sweet. Like the whole game is kind of coded in this like companionship, like togetherness. Like all the characters that you come across and meet, or even a lot of the puzzles will be like, it'll be like just like 2 hands with like the pinkies hooked or something. There's just a lot of little things that are about like bringing people together, finding connection, compassion. It's very, very well done.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. You know, you play that for about 2 hours or so. You're not going to get stuck. You have a good time, and then you're in, you're out, bada bing, bada boom. So Yeah, I mean, you guys watched it. Anything you feel like I missed or anything that you want me to go into more than that? You saw the entire game, so we're all aware of what it's like. Well, you saw the entire game if you watched the whole stream. Nervous laughter.
I watched the majority of it. I think I missed the very end, so hey, that didn't get spoiled for me. I could still make my partner. But no, I mean, I really don't have anything else to add. It's weird. I love that indie developers are coming up with new ways to combine genres, because this is something you would never think could be a thing and work and be as effective as it is. It makes you feel good to play a game where everything that you're touching and doing is inherently creepy to most people. But it makes you feel good about doing it, and you're smiling. Like, I smiled the whole time watching it. It's just a really chill game that has some weird stuff on screen while you're playing it, but it just works so well together. It's right. Strange. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, these smaller games, you can tell it's just this is just an artist. You know, this speaks one person's vision, it seems like, or just like a group of people's vision. And if they didn't have the ability to make this game, we would never see this weird but kind of cute and kind of charming and gross but not game. Yeah.
Yeah. So, rounding it out, where am I going to put it? It might surprise people, but I'm going to main quest it.
Oh,
like,
really? I am surprised.
Yeah, me too.
It is a cohesive vision. Like, it is rare as the game where I'm like, this is the thing this person wanted to make in its entirety, capsuled up and presented. Plus, it helps that it is extremely my vibe. This game is like the first week of November. You haven't taken down the Halloween decorations yet, but it's a crisp winter day outside and you're sipping a hot latte, the game.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think, this is not my only criteria for something that goes in the quest log, but we do often talk about the main quest being something that is applicable to anyone. And I think that this is a game that qualifies under those circumstances. I think that you can be a great game that does not work for everyone and still be a main quest game. But I think in this case, it's like, this really is intentionally low friction in a way that I think a lot of people will get a little something out of it. And like, you're just going to leave like a little warmer and a little happier and a little, just a little more satisfied than when you started. So we're going to give Birth the old main quest thumb up.
Love it.
I think that maybe you drew a comparison on the stream, and I said something earlier because I either remembered that, but the art style and the shades really remind me, and I don't think it's on the quest log yet, but remind me of Florence. I recently played that.
Yeah. And
Florence is a game that's very, very short, but does the same thing. It gets its point across, and I'm not going to put it on the main quest or the side quest right now, right? But it does a similar thing, and even though it's only 45 minutes long, does not necessarily mean that it doesn't belong on the main quest, right? So
yeah, exactly. So I liked it. Plus, I will say, I can't speak to the quality in any of the other ones, but this developer / I assume artist, Madison, if you look at their Steam page, they have like 3 or 4 other games with a very similar energy to them. So it seems like maybe this is a style that they've used before a few times. So if you play Birth, you like it, it seems like there's more to dig into there. That maybe there's, an extended cinematic universe
of Birth.
This one says the other 2 games I'm seeing is Landlord of the Woods and Whimsy, and they definitely look similar. So at least in art style. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, I suppose that leaves just 2 main quests. I hope I do not disappoint everyone. All right, so we already spoiled the fact that I played a 2023 game. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if you guys have heard of this game. It makes me very curious. Meg's Monster.
I have heard the name before, but I'm going to have to look it up to see if I've ever actually seen the game.
Should be very interesting. I think both of you will remember the developer, especially once I describe. So I found out.
I've seen it in the store, but I didn't really know what it was.
So I just discovered it. I think maybe it was on sale one week, and I was like, that game looks interesting. And I started poking around, looking at its store page and stuff like that. It released March 2nd of this year. developed by Odin Cat. And I don't know that you would remember, but Odin Cat also made, are you going to say it, Steve?
I was going to say, of Bear's Restaurant fame.
Bear's Restaurant. And I absolutely adored Bear's Restaurant, brought it last year. I think it came out like 2020. But when I saw that this game was developed by the same people, I was like, oh, I am in. It even has kind of the aesthetic of Bear's Restaurant. Looks very similar to Bear's Restaurant, which I'll get into some more in presentation. But you can play this game on your Switch or PC. Overview. It is a story-focused JRPG adventure. So pretty basic. Not a whole lot of genre soup that's going to happen this time. I'm going to draw some comparisons to Bear's Restaurant as we go, I suppose, because it looks similar, made by the same people. Bear's Restaurant was much more of a to-the-moon, linear, story-focused game, right? There wasn't a whole lot of battling or anything that you did in Bear's Restaurant. It was mostly you clicked, you talked, you clicked, you talked, you clicked, you talked, and then you eventually got to the end of the game, and hopefully you felt something, because that's the point of those kinds of games. Meg's Monster takes that premise and puts the JRPG coat of paint on it, which, honestly, before I played Bear's Restaurant, before I played To the Moon, that whole series, I wouldn't have ever gravitated towards those kinds of games, but now I love them. But if you put JRPG into that type of game, I'm all in. It's going to be my jam, because those are two of my favorite genres now, right? So, presentation. You guys are looking at it a little bit. It is very Bear's Restaurant, very Mother 3, specifically. I could say Earthbound, but the reason I would say Mother 3 is because Mother 3 is on GBA. And I say that because on GBA, sprites are usually a little bit bigger, a little bit more blown up. And that is exactly how this is presented. I'm playing it on my computer, but it almost looks like I'm zoomed in a little bit. Everything's very large. It almost seems like I could zoom out a little ways or add some more pixels in there, and it would fit more on what you might consider like a Super Nintendo or something like Earthbound. But
yeah,
because of how zoomed in it is, it almost reminds me of high fidelity GBA or something.
For sure. It even has like the characters have that like black outline that is common to a Game Boy Advance game, because the sprites were so small they wanted something to make them higher contrast. And even though it wouldn't be necessary in a modern game like this, you can tell that it was an intentional design choice.
Right. It's the GBA screen only has so many pixels that it can present, and that's exactly each pixel that's in the characters or in the backgrounds of Meg's Monster are larger than they need to be. But that's the look that they wanted it to have, and it very much matches Bear's Restaurant, which looks really good. I love the way this game looks. Very colorful, but also simple with the GBA aesthetic. A little bit more before we go into the rest. I'll get more into the battles and things like that in the gameplay, but for how it looks, there are health bars once you get into the battles for both yourself and the enemies. There's the attack and the guard and squares off to the side that you can click on. Everything is very basic, but presented well. There's no extra really flair with that stuff. It's just kind of a bar and gives you a number of how full your HP is and things like that. And that's about it. But I like how simple it is, because it didn't need to go over the top. It presented it just the way it needed to, and that was it. And kind of left the rest of the game to impact you the way it needed to do without giving you extra stuff on top, right? So moving into the story, as you can imagine with a game like this, I can't talk about a lot because I would spoil too much. But the premise is interesting, at least to me. Basically, there is a human world and a monster world. The monster world is known as the Underworld. And you find out not very far in, so it's not super spoilery. The monster world is basically, the Underworld is basically a pit where the humans throw all their unwanted stuff down this big hole, and it all kind of rolls down there. It's almost like a landfill, and the monsters often will eat the disposed of things and utilize that stuff to make their homes and stuff like that, right? So there's two very separate worlds. They do not hardly interact at all, but there are a select amount of humans within the monster world. And at the very beginning of the game, there's a little girl named Meg who accidentally falls into the underworld and, starts stumbling around trying to find her mom. She keeps, she's walking up to random monsters saying she can't find her mom. Well, of course, monsters, as in most folklore and things like that, monsters eat people. So a monster attempts to eat this little girl. And our other main character, other than Meg, Roy, a big, hulking blue, has a mohawk and a lobster arm for one of his arms and that has an eye on it. As soon as this other monster tries to bite Meg's head off, basically, she starts crying, of course, as a 6-year-old girl would do. Mm-hmm. And the screen just goes red and starts trembling, basically, like a heartbeat. And Roy's like, "Oh my, I'm feeling hot. What's going on?" Come to find out later on, it seems that Meg is basically this ticking time bomb for monsters, where whenever she cries, all monsters will end up dying, basically. There'll be a catastrophic event if she cries too much. So
it's Monsters Inc.
It, yes. Well, I actually refer to Roy because of just his attitude and everything. He's very much Shrek to me. So he basically keeps Meg safe from all the other monsters throughout your playthrough. And of course, things change that I cannot. I would spoil everything if I went into too much detail. But Roy realizes that they have kind of a relationship that they need to have, himself and Meg, along with his pal Golan, to continue on and get Meg back to her mom so that she does not destroy their world, right? So that's Roy's whole purpose, but he lives in this cave. He does not want anyone to come visit him. He's very weird about having Meg in his cave at all. So Shrek. It's like Shrek and Donkey, except for Meg is not Donkey, but she's just kind of the 6-year-old, doesn't know anything about the world, does not think the monsters are scary because she's 6 and she hasn't really experienced scary. She just wants to find her mom. So of course she grows very attached to Roy as the game goes, and Roy is like, like, why are you touching me? So that's the general premise, and I'm not going to go into any more than that. That's like the first, maybe 15 minutes. You kind of get into all that and find out that that's kind of how it's going to go. Dialogue is extremely witty and humorous. The back and forth. I will say I got slightly annoyed with some of the back and forth between Golan, who is the other monster, and Roy, because they call each other bro and dude all the time, like they're a couple dude bros, which is it's very much the English translation. This game, Odin Cat is a Japanese developer, which we don't see very often. I feel like a lot of Japanese developers that make games are AAA is, what we immediately go to, but a Japanese indie developer. So some of that translation, whoever translated it probably took some liberties. So it was a little cringe at times, but at the same time, it makes a lot of sense. They're sort of immature and they mature as they go. So talking like that isn't the worst thing. But yeah, lots of twists and turns to the story. That's all I'm going to say. If the rest of my review interests anyone out there, I highly suggest you go and play Meg's Monster. But moving on to what is the other major part, I would say the story. This game is one half story, one half Bear's Restaurant, and then one half JRPG. In that way, it kind of reminds me of Undertale a little bit.
In looking at the screenshots and watching like the trailer here, it has a very Undertale energy to it. Even the story setup where you're talking about like there being an underworld where the monsters are is very Undertale. So I think some pretty clear inspiration in a good way.
Sure.
Yeah. And anybody that's played Undertale knows that everything is not what it seems, right? And that's very much the same with Meg's Monster. Just because somebody seems bad at first does not necessarily mean they're bad. So just because somebody seems good, that whole thing. So, battles. They are very basic JRPG battles. Honestly, reminds me almost of Breath of Fire 1, which I know that's maybe it's a pretty popular game, but still somewhat obscure for people who don't play JRPGs. But a lot of it is just, okay, I can attack, I can guard, I can use an item, and that's about it. They're not extremely strategic until you get into later versions of the battles. Something that I actually liked about these battles, though, is there's no grinding. It's very linear. Every battle is, you can almost consider them to be boss battles in a way, because you only ever fight each battle once. If you fail to defeat that enemy, it lets you restart at the beginning of the battle, and you go back and you do it again. So you're not going to go out and grind with Roy ever. In fact, the strangest thing, and if you guys have looked up screenshots and seen any of the battle screens, Roy is basically the most powerful being in the universe. He is incredibly strong, and it's strange. I love that about this game, because it's strange to play an RPG where you start out with this ultra powerful being. I guess it's not strange. That does happen in JRPGs, but often they get amnesia and forget how to use a sword or whatever, and then you got to find their heart somewhere on the top of some mountain, and then they're like, oh, I remember who I am, and then they can defeat the evil god. Well, Roy is incredibly strong from the beginning and is always that strong. Like he forever has 99,999 health. That is how much, and it's so weird. It's like I'm going to be able to obliterate everyone. Is that not the point? Well, it is and it isn't. So Roy is not necessarily the target of most attacks. He is, but you don't manage Roy's health most of the time. You manage not even Meg's health. You manage Meg's happiness or mood. Meg becomes quickly attached to Roy, so every time Roy gets hit, he usually takes like 10 damage. Literally, it doesn't even affect his health bar at all. But that will then transcend and make Meg's well-being, basically, happiness, do damage. So she has her own happiness bar that will go down every time Roy is hit. So you have to manage. It's mostly about managing Meg's happiness, not about managing anything about Roy. Roy's just like a wrecking ball. Roy can tear through anything, but the whole point is not to allow Meg to cry, or else everything is lost. So as the game goes on, Meg will find junk laying thrown away in some of these, because like I said, the underworld, the humans just throw everything down. So they'll find toys, and monsters don't understand what toys are. Roy's like, what is this thing? But Meg's like, oh, it makes me happy. So you see a little cutscene where Roy is playing with a rocket. Like, how am I supposed to do this? And Meg's like, no, that's not how you do it. You got to do it like this, Roy. And then you can use that toy in battle to make Meg happy again. So her happiness falls down. Roy picks the item and makes her happiness go back up. So it's almost like a heal, but for her happiness. She never gets hit at all, right? He's always blocking for her. So it's always about just making Meg happy as you play through the game. And that's pretty much it. Roy gets, it is. It is honestly adorable. Roy gets a lot of different, not a lot of different, only a couple different really, but progressively gets stronger attacks. So it's almost, I was talking about Octopath Traveler earlier, and Steve, you played a little bit of it, right? So there's BP in Octopath Traveler where you can like charge and do more than one attack at a time. Roy has a similar thing where he can charge up these stars. He can either do like a basic attack that does not much damage, or he can do a 1-star attack that does more, or a 2-star attack that does more. And then every time he uses those stars, he depletes them, right? So you're kind of balancing back and forth. Maybe the enemy is saying like, oh, I'm charging up for a strong attack. So that's probably the time to guard, right? Guard this turn, gain a star, do more damage on the next one. The battles do become more tactical as the game goes on, and some puzzle elements are introduced. But for the most part, they're pretty basic. There was never a time that I lost a battle more than once. I might lose it and then change my decision making as I go, and then conquer it the next time, right? So there are also puzzles in the overworld that you complete as you're going, where you have to kind of split up your party, quote unquote party, because each person in your party has a different special skill that you might have to get through an obstacle, right? So pretty basic stuff. Do you guys have any questions about the battles in general?
So when you're managing her, this is like so in the weeds, people probably don't care, but I'm curious. When you're managing your happiness, is that like, are those toys and things like a limited resource that you need to keep finding as you play through the game, or are they infinite use?
Good call. So the toys are infinite use outside of that one battle. So let's say there's a rocket, right? It's the first toy you find. You use the rocket and it heals Meg's happiness 40 points. You can no longer use that rocket for the rest of that battle.
Okay.
So you're also balancing your item usage with your attacks, with your guarding. And you don't want to, go for broke and just like heal Meg every single turn, or else you're going to run out of items without doing enough damage to the enemy. So it's that balance of doing the back and forth. It seems very simple at first, but it does get more complicated in kind of a fun way. It's not ever hard, but it does give you that fun feeling, that good feeling of, oh, I figured it out. It's almost like every battle's a mini puzzle in a way, a strategic little back and forth, which I guess really is what JRPG battles are in general, right? But
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Very cool.
Music. Incredible. One of the best parts of this game. I mean, Bear's Restaurant had pretty good music, but it was a lot of like music box type music. Still really good. This game is an out of this world soundtrack. I had honestly thought that I kind of had my choices. This is maybe looking behind the curtain a little bit, but I honestly thought I basically had my choices narrowed down to what I needed to choose between for music for our GOTY episode. This really throws a wrench in that because it is awesome. The thing that I don't like about it, and this is not the developer's fault, I 100% support them in this decision. The majority of the music is not on YouTube.
Oh, dang.
You can buy the soundtrack for like $12. I still think it's worth it. I might do that. Just the only thing that sucks about that is I can't take that. Like I can't, once I buy that on my computer, that's it. Like that, I got to listen to it on my computer. That frustrates me a little bit. I wish I could listen to it. There are a few good songs on YouTube and some samplings, but I just wish somebody would put the soundtrack on YouTube so I could listen to it from beginning to end because it is orchestral. Honestly, the music in a lot of ways does not match the art style of the game because it's so good. It's not chiptunes, which it seems like it should be. It's just incredible orchestral arrangements in each and every one. There's highs and there's lows. Depending, every single battle, it seems like has its own variation, especially the later boss battles each and every one of them have their own boss battle music. It's so good. So good. I highly recommend play the game so you can hear it, or buy the soundtrack after the game. I mean, support the developers, of course. I just wish sometimes you want a little sampling outside of just going and playing the game or buying the soundtrack. But I think that brings me to the end of my review, fellas. Do you guys have any other questions before I put it on the quest log?
My only question I can't ask until you've put it on the quest log.
Okay.
I just wanted to read a Steam review because I always like reading these.
Yeah.
It says, I thought I was going in for something silly, and it was very silly. But then I almost cried. And then it got silly again, and then I actually cried. Very good, 10 out of 10. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Josh, you would enjoy this game. You both would really, really like this game. I know that for a fact, but I think
it's already on my wish list, man. You already did it.
Yeah. How long is it? Like about 4 or 5 hours or something?
So I 100%ed it, which is it's like one of the easiest games I've ever had to 100%. To get the final achievement on this game, it's like 70% on Steam. Insane.
Oh, wow.
The crazy thing is, I don't know how the Steam achievement percentages work, but usually if you buy the game and try it, that person might get the first achievement and they're like, oh, maybe they bounce off, right? So then they don't see all the achievements. To me, yes, it's easy to do. All you got to do is there's side quests as you go so that you can go kind of off the beaten path a little bit. You're not going to miss them ever. They're labeled for you. It's like a green point rather than a red point on the overworld map. The overworld map I didn't mention, but it's very much like Super Mario Brothers 3, where you can just select somewhere to go, select somewhere else to go. It's very, you don't walk around at all. You just kind of pick the next place you're going to go. And there's green points, so you can go to the side quest. But it's very easy to get all the achievements, but I think it's a testament to this game that the most difficult achievement, or basically to beat the game, is 70%. Because that means 70% of the people who started this game finished it. Like, that's, to me, kind of incredible. And there's not a whole lot of people who have played it, I don't think. I mean, it's got 700 Steam reviews, like 98% approval. But for 70%, like 7 out of 10 people who have even tried this game have beaten it, which is crazy to me. But with all that, and maybe that leads into this, I am going to put Meg's Monster on the main quest. It is very worthy of the main quest. It honestly, it makes things so much harder. I knew I wanted to play this game as soon as I knew it was Bear's Restaurant developers. I knew I was going to enjoy it. It makes things so much harder for the Cody stuff because, you know, every once in a while I'll look at my list. I've been keeping a list. Oh, this makes sense for this category. This makes sense for this category. And then you play a game like this at the end of the year where it's like, well, that just screws everything up potentially. But yeah, actually, Josh, did I answer your question about how long it takes, or did I just go on to a tangent? I don't remember. I
think you went on a tangent, but you pretty much made it seem like it's pretty short, right?
Yeah, especially for a JRPG. It is. I 100% of this game in 6 hours.
6 hours. Okay. Nice.
It's, if you weren't, honestly, I wandered a little bit. There's really not a lot of reason to wander unless you just want more dialogue in certain places. And I probably let it idle. You could probably 100% in 5 hours. You could beat the game in 4 easily. It's very linear, very straightforward. You're never going to get lost. You know exactly where to go every time, and that's the point. And sometimes that's all I really want out of an RPG experience. I don't need to get lost and have to look up a guide because I can't figure out where I'm going, or, oh, I turned left instead of right and now I don't know where I'm at. This is a simple experience, but does exactly what it sets out to do. Kind of like Steve said with Birth. Mm-hmm. It does the exact thing it went out to do. It gives you a very touching story. And like Josh said with that review, it's going to make you feel some stuff. So
awesome.
So I'm certainly sold on it. I'm curious then, as the resident expert, would you recommend that people play this or Bear's Restaurant first if they've never played an Odencat game before?
They're not like attached in any way, so you could really go in any order you want. If you want a game that actually gives you gameplay, then play Meg's Monster, because, you know, there's actually stuff to do with the battles, with the puzzles. If you don't mind that to the moon experience where really all you're doing is playing a short visual novel, then play Bear's Restaurant. Bear's Restaurant is excellent in its own right, but it's one of those that really dances on the line of whether it's a game. It's more of an interactive story, right? So I think that Meg's Monster is like the evolution of what Bear's Restaurant could have been. If they had more time, if they spent more money to put more stuff into Bear's Restaurant, then you would end up with Meg's Monster.
Awesome. Very cool. I'm like doing the mental calculus in my head. I'm like, is there literally any way that I can play this by the end of the year? God,
I knew once I saw it.
What a freaking year, man!
Yeah,
I was seriously thinking about that this morning, and maybe this leads us into our Goaty episode's coming up in a couple weeks / month, but yeah, just so many good games. It's so hard. Like, I'm thinking I've got things narrowed down to like 3 to 5 for every category, and it's like, how do I pick one? It's like picking between my children. I'm not going to like it.
It is ridiculous how good of a year it is. And for me personally, sometimes a year has one game that, like, I'm like, okay, this is a freaking good year, but I know that there's an Outer Wilds in it or a Tunic in it, where I'm like, this is settled for me, and then you fill in the rest, which is a little more comforting. This year, it is truly just, it is anarchy. It is just a molecule games pinging around inside my head, just boom, 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 boom. I have no idea what to go with.
It's day to day for me. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's got to be this, and then the next day I'm like, I can't. But I'm gonna.
What about this one?
I'm gonna spoil it just slightly. But everybody, we've done this joke. But wheels.
Oh man!
From day to day, Wheels is literally the tipping point for Sea of Stars. I swear, dude.
Oh man! Well, we got 3 main quests. It's been a while since we had a full main quest with all 3 of us, right?
Yeah.
What? Wait, was that our last episode too, or was that 2 episodes ago?
No, yeah, I think you're right. Our last episode, because
we had like an all side quest episode, an all main quest episode, and now another all main quest episode. We're on a freaking, again, not only are we on an all main quest episode, but most of our games are 2023 games because we're all sort of in like catch up season.
Yep.
Which again, and occasionally we bring in an all-star like Celeste, to just round things out.
I just had to. I don't know. I was just feeling it.
It just demonstrates the quality.
Yeah. So we got Celeste, Birth, and Meg's Monster all on the main quest. I mean, you guys heard us talk about them. I would say go play them if they sounded good to you.
Hell yeah.
For sure.
All right. I think we're wrapping up the show. So who wants to... We should plug, huh? We should do our plugs.
Plug it
the
up.
Finales. Okay. You can find IndieQuest on X at IndieQuestPod. You can send us emails, IndieQuestPod@gmail.com. Questions, comments. If you have like a game of the year, I mean, we already talked, there's so many games. Like, what's your favorite game this year? Like, if you have a comment or, want to talk about a game that we haven't even mentioned, maybe bring it up to us and maybe if we can find the time, we'll try it out.
Yeah.
For the end of the year.
Stress me out. Send me if you've heard us not mention a game you loved this year, send it to our email address. You know what? Put it on the top of my list. Make me sweat a little.
Mm-hmm. So you can find me at Frantic Society on Twitter or X. Where can they find you, Steve?
X and Twitch as Blinkoom. That's Blink OOM like Meg's Monster.
That is perfect. Not
We
very
finally
often
got one that actually makes sense. Yeah. What about you, Seth? Where can they find you?
You can find me on X/Twitter at Captain Drachma, and of course in the Polymedia Discord, best place on the internet. You can get into that Discord by going to Patreon and searching Polymedia. Come be our friend. And also, I just want to add on top of what Josh was saying about sending us emails, sending us stuff. Please do that. We know now that there are people that listen to this based on our Spotify Wrapped.
That's true.
So send us stuff so we can talk about it on here. That's our dream. We want to hear that stuff. So anything you guys are thinking indie related, send it in.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Polymedia, you mentioned the name a couple times there. We're part of the Polymedia Network of podcasts. There's a bunch of awesome shows on there, like Point and Drink Adventure. They just put out one. They talked a little about the fall of House of Usher, Baldur's Gate 3, Fatal Frame 2. It's always fun to listen to Petey and Pam sit there and just drink some booze and have some fun conversation about the media they're enjoying. What's another podcast that you would recommend? Captain Drachma.
Oh, you should go listen to...
Or Steve.
No, I'm butting it. You should go listen to Seth's other podcast, Drunk Friend.
Oh, come on now.
Just as often, more often than Trav. Okay? But yes, it's a Drunk Friend, a good show, which is your combination of video games, talented people, and sports is how I'd probably describe that one. So, Seth, why don't you go ahead and tell them what you love?
Everyone should go check out Polykill, Steve's other podcast. But it's actually Steve's other podcast. If you guys like video games that include things that are outside of the indie space and indie video games, because Steve tries to separate them a little bit. Trav doesn't. Trav just brings and plays whatever. Yeah. So go check that out. And make sure you hashtag that just beat it. And hey, honestly, if you guys play a sweet indie game that we haven't talked about on here and it's a little bit of crossover, tag us in those. I'd like to see that.
That's true. Yeah. We love a little cross promotion.
Yes, for sure.
So, who wants to close out the show? Should I close out the show for once? I feel like I only
Josh.
rarely ever do it.
You drop a pearl of wisdom on them.
Okay. I would say on these cold, it's getting closer to winter, so bundle up, get some nice blankets, get your favorite beverage, warm or cold. Most likely warm, like a Java, hot cocoa, peppermint hot cocoa, whatever you like. Sit down and play one of these fantastic main quest games we just put on the quest log. And you guys have a great day and see you next time.
Perfect.
Leah moved the bottle opener. She must have used it for something. So I was sweating. I was like, oh, I'm on the clock. I know every second that goes by is one little comment bubbling up into friggin' Drachma's mouth.
There's always comments bubbling up in my mouth, buddy.
I know.
What'd you get there? What'd you need a bottle opener for? You got fancy water.
Topo Chico.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, twist of lime.
Wow.
Speaking of burping, you'll be burping with that. Get those bubbles.
Better than coughing. That's why I lost my confidence. Is because I felt a cough bubble up. I've had a persistent cough for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If you were paying attention in the last Polykill, you could tell, oh my God, it was terrible.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes you were just like, okay.
There was a couple times where I had to run up to the sentence.
Yes, 40 second. If you had a 40-second line, you're just and then you're I could tell you just go completely muted. So I figured you were probably grabbing your mute as soon as that happened.
Literally, I was racing. The cough was behind me, and I was like, no. It was so bad. There's several that Trav either vamped through or probably edited out of 3-minute coughing fits. Oh my God.
That's funny. That's funny.
All right, let's record an IndieQuest.
Sounds good.
Who wants to do a countdown?
You want me to do a 3, 2, 1, go?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right.
That's pretty good. 1, 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah.